This meeting is being live streamed. Okay, I can see Facebook now.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello everyone. My name is Yousuf. I have closely 5 years of experience as a Java backend developer. So I have been worked in couple of companies, including like ThoughtWorks. Currently, I'm working at TCS. Along with that, I have close to 3 years of experience. I have taught in different institute. I mean, including like Awesome Institute, and currently I'm part of like Enthusiastic. I'm very super excited. So my graduation have completed in 2020 in the stream of like computer science and engineering. So I love learning things like coding, software development, and teaching as well. So today, as part of this webinar, I'll be like going through a simple topic yet very important topic in Java, that is arrays. So yeah, I'll maybe have a PPT along with me, and with the help of that PPT, I'll try to explain you. So what about arrays and all? Okay. So just give me a moment. I'm sharing my PPT with you. Okay. Yeah. Uh, I hope you all can see my screen, right? Okay, so I'm hoping that you are able to see my screen. So let's start. So before moving ahead, right, I just wanted to understand that, I mean, what do you know about arrays? Like, I mean, if I ask you, right, what is array, and what do you understand from array? Okay. So yeah, what is array? Why do I need array? Maybe let's try to understand it from why do I need an array. So I hope since this topic is array, I'm assuming that you will be knowing basic things like a variable and then data types in Java. So let's try to understand what is the need of an array, and then let's try to jump and learn what is an array. Okay. So maybe you are developing an application for something called a student, or maybe for a school. So where you are one of the requirement is that you wanted to store a particular student, all maybe let's say 5 subjects marks. How can you store it without arrays? All right, maybe you can store with the help of like maybe declaring 5 different variables. Let's say I'll say maybe English marks, maybe I'll say French marks, maybe I'll say mathematics marks, and then I'll say social marks, and then I'll say maybe science marks. So I'll be having like different 5 variables, and where of they are, let's say, float type, and then I'll assign just marks to them. Correct? But do you think is it an elegant way of doing things? Maybe I just did it for one student. Maybe let's say if I have 100 students, then I need to create 100 into 5 variables, which is like closely 500 variables. But do you think is it a right way of doing things? Of course it is not. So I need an elegant way of maybe storing this data together in a continuous fashion, or where I can access them and perform whatever the things I want to perform, right? So how can I do that? And thanks to Java developers, they have came up with this a particular topic called arrays. With the help of arrays, I can basically store the similar data together in a continuous fashion, so that I can access and I can perform certain operations moving ahead. Okay. So now let's try to understand, as I was saying, right, why arrays? Basically, to store multiple values together, and to access element easily using indexes, and arrays are very helpful in efficient looping and data management. Okay. Now let's try to understand what is an array. So array is a collection of elements of the same data type. So understand very, make this point very, very clear that I can only store a similar data type. So what does it mean? It means that I can store all my integer data together, or maybe I can store all my float together, or maybe I can store all my character data together, or maybe I can store all my booleans together, but not across data types. Let's say I cannot store ints along with floats. I cannot do that. I cannot store maybe a character along with integer. I cannot do that. So array is a collection of elements of a same data type. Okay. And basically it stores multiple values in a single variable. We have seen, right? If you want to store maybe a particular subject's mark, maybe I'm using a variable for each subject. Instead of that, I can store multiple similar data in a single variable. So what does that mean? I can store maybe 5 float values in a single variable. Maybe I can store 5 integers in a single variable. So on and so forth. Okay. And the best part of arrays is, like, the beauty of arrays, I would say that arrays are stored in continuous memory allocation. So the beauty of the elements are stored in continuous memory allocations is that you can access elements via an index based. Maybe coming ahead, I'll talk about how you can access and all. But I hope you understood what array is and the basic structure of what array does. Okay. And so the arrays declaration and initialization. So basically the syntax of array declaration and initialization will be like, so in the start, if you see, right, the syntax will be like, I have to give the data type over here. So what does the data type over here? Maybe I can give int, or maybe I can give float, or maybe I can give character, and so on and so forth. And I have to give the name of that an array, right? Maybe I can give marks, or maybe I can give ages, maybe I can give student IDs, so on and so forth, right? Equals to new data type of size. So basically what does it means that on the left hand side of equals is I'm declaring a variable of which data type it is. Okay. On the right hand side, I'm initializing this particular data with that particular size. Let's say I want to store the one particular student marks. How can I do that? So I can say in a float, and then open and close bracket, I'll say marks equal to new, then float of size, maybe I'm giving 5 subjects, so I'll give 5. So with the help of this, right, I'll be able to initialize and declare and initialize a particular array. Okay. Maybe I can do this way also, the second way, that is the same thing, data type, and open and close bracket, and then variable name, and I can pass the values directly. Maybe I can say that float, then marks equals to maybe 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and then I can close it. So whenever I have passed like this, then I need not to worry about the size, because whatever the number of elements that I'm passing, right, that number of elements will become the size of my array. Okay. And the example, if you see, right, that is uh, like whatever my numbers are there, right, if you see in my numbers thing, I've given like int and then numbers equals to new int of 5. So where I have given numbers 0 equals to 10, and then my numbers 1 equals to 20. Again, let's not worry about what is this 0, what is 1. Maybe when I'm giving you a proper example thing, right, you will understand in a much more way. Okay. And how can I access my array elements? Very simple, as I've told in the second slide, that my array elements are stored in a continuous allocation, so that it will be easy to access it from a index based. Okay. So that my I mean, you have to always remember over here that my array elements are always starts with 0. They not start with 1, they'll not start with -1. Instead they'll start with 0. Okay. So that, let's say I'm having maybe an array, all right, which is having, let's say, 5 marks. If I want to access the first element, how can I say that? I can say that system dot out dot println marks of 0. So it will give me the first element of my marks, right? Maybe if I want to see the last element, right? Please tell me, like, how can I do that? Since my size of an array is 5, yes, you are right. It will be like 4. Okay, marks of 4 will give me the last element. If I want to say that maybe the third element, as you can see over here, right? System dot out dot println marks of 2 will give me the third element. Okay, and moving, I mean, to come over here, right? Maybe what I'll give you a basic a demo so that you will understand whatever um I was speaking. Okay, so as I was talking about a student storing a student's marks, right? So let's say I'll be saving float and my marks equals to new float of, let's say I want 5 people subject. So I'm giving as 5, correct? So what I have done basically declared a variable called marks of data type called floor with the size of 5. Okay. Now how can I do that? If I want to basically store the elements in it, right? I can say that marks of 0, I can say, let's say maybe 56, I got, right? And marks of 1, let's say he got 67. Okay. And I hope you know why I'm writing f at the end, because it is a convention. Like whenever I'm using float variables, right? I have to assign that particular value with at the end f. Okay, then marks of 2 equals to, maybe I'll say 73f. Okay, and then marks of 3 equals to, maybe I can say 78f. Then marks of, like, say 4 equals to, I can say maybe 45. Okay, so very simple, right? I'm doing very simple things, that I have created a marks, and then I'm assigning the values for each location. Each location, as in this 0th location will have the first element, and 1th location will be having the second element, and second, I mean, 2 index will be having like third element, so on till 4, which is the fifth element. Okay, so I've just stored my all my elements over here, right? And let's say if I want to, as I was saying, right, if I want to basically uh, print, or maybe I want to access the first element, how can I do that? I can say marks of 0 will give me the first element, isn't it correct? So maybe I can say my first subject marks will be this, isn't it correct? Maybe I'll just run it. If you see, I'll get as 56, correct? If you see, I've got as 56. Now let's say if I want to access the third element, right? Maybe I can say the third subject marks. Then if I want to access the third element, what index I have to give? -1. That is 2. 3 minus 1 will be 2, correct? Then if I want to access the last subject, that is the fifth one, how can I access it? Again, 5 minus 1 will be 4. So I'll be getting 4. Let's run and see that. If you see, we have got all these things, right? And now, if you see, right, I mean, uh, since only 5 students are there, so it was like very easy that I'm assigning like maybe 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, like that. But let's assume that if I have maybe 500, then how can I do that? Then it is not an elegant way of doing things, right? Like marks of 0, marks of 1, and then so on till marks of 499. It is not an elegant way of doing things. Instead of, how can I do that? I can leverage looping on my arrays for assigning also, or maybe for accessing also. I mean, since we have ascended, maybe let's try to understand how I can print all my marks over here instead of like printing like one by one over like this with the help of index. Maybe if I want to print all my marks, how can I do that? So let's try to understand that. So as of now, I'm just commenting this out, and then maybe let's try to print. I can say for uh, int, I say my index 0, then my index plus plus, and sorry, my index has to be less than or equals to, it has to be less than 5, and then my index plus plus. And I hope you know about for the syntax, all of those things. Again, if I want to print, right, how can I do that? Right, so I can say my subject 1, then marks will be what it is. It will be like marks of, can I say my index, isn't it? All right, so it will print basically every subject marks with like this: subject one's mark, or subject two's marks, then subject three's marks, so on. Correct? I'll say maybe plus one over here. I mean, do not get confused. For easy understanding, I've just given like index plus one, so that, I mean, my index starts from 0, right? If I want to know my subject one, then 0 plus 1 becomes the subject one. So maybe if I run this, you will get some understanding. Okay. So if you see, right, subject one's marks is 56, and then so on, all these things. Now, what is my requirement is that I want to maybe calculate the total marks of this, let's say this particular student. How can I do that? Again, very simple. I have to leverage the my loops only. I'll take the help of, maybe I'll take maybe a particular called a sum variable, where I'll just iterate every element of my index array, and then I'll just add every element to it by iterating the entire array. By at the end, whatever the result will be there in my sum, it will be my total, isn't it? So I'll follow the same thing. So I'll say total marks. So again, for simplicity, I'm just copying over here. So instead of this, what I have to do, again, I have to take my float sum equals to 0, all right? And then I'll say my sum equals to my sum plus, then it will be like marks of, can I say index, correct? So what it will give me? It will give me basically the sum of my all my 5 subjects. Now I just print it. Can I say my total marks equals to, I'll just say, sorry, my sum, correct? So if I run this, right, I'll get all my marks I'm printing. At the same time, I'm printing my total marks as well. Now again, let's go a little uh, more thing. Like maybe if I want to find the maximum marks, right, how can I find that? Can you help me find the maximum marks? How can I do that? Right, again, very simple. I have to take one maximum variable. Let's say I'll consider one maximum variable. Maybe I'll assign it to the max as the first element I'm considering as my maximum. All right, I'll iterate every element. I'll check with my max variable that whether this maximum variable having whatever value is more than the current element I'm traversing. If not, right, then I need not to update it. Otherwise, let's say my current element is maximum than the maximum value which is there in my max variable, then I just have to update it. So if I do this like this, right, then the entire traversal will, after the entire traversal will give me a my maximum marks, correct? So I'll say my float max equals to, I know my maximum value, I'm assuming as my the first element is my maximum value. I know how to access my first element also, right? Again, I just have to traverse over it, correct? So since I've already traversed my first index, then I need not to traverse the first index again. I'll start from 1 over here, correct? And then what I have to check, I have to check whether my current element, so current element, how will I get that? With the help of marks index is my current element. If it is greater than my maximum, then it means that whatever traversed so far, this is the maximum. So I just have to update this, then marks of, I'll say my index sufficient, correct? Then at the end, if I see, right, I just print my total marks is whatever is there in my maximum variable is my total marks, correct? So if I run this, right, you will see I'll get the maximum element, that is 78. See, we have got the 78. Instead of total marks, I can say that my maximum marks. Okay. All right. Again, similarly, if I want to find the minimum marks also, right, how can I do that? Very simple. The same way I have done for max. Again, I'll take one more variable called, let's say, min. Again, I'll assume my first element is my minimum, and then I have to traverse it. In the same loop, I can traverse it. If I say my current element, that is marks of index, is less than my minimum, can I say my update my minimum? Correct? Yes, I can. I'll say my marks of index. All right, and then whatever is there in my minimum is my minimum value of this particular array, correct? So I'll say minimum, right? If you see, right, what is the minimum over here? The minimum value is 45, so it has to be 45. Right, if you see, the minimum is 45. So I hope you understood the basic things on like what is array, and then how to access the particular elements, and how to traverse, and how to do basic operations, correct? And let's try to move on to the other things. As I have already spoken, right, accessing the elements, I can do it via index based, or I can do it via per loop. Okay, and this is very important that like a lot of people do not understand. Maybe at the start they'll do some common errors, so I'll talk about the common errors. The first common error is that array index out of bounds exception. So what does it means? That, let's say, I'll come back over here, and maybe let's try to do this. Maybe okay, at here I'll say system dot out dot, I know what is my size. My size of an array is 5, correct? So if I want to access the elements, it has to be from 0 to 4 only, correct? Instead of that, what I'm doing is, maybe I'll say, instead of 4, by mistakenly I thought that since my array size is 5, right, so why not start with I mean give the last element as 5. What does it will do? Let's see what it will do. It will throw me an exception, that is my index of 5 out of bounds for length of 5, right? So we'll get array index bounds exception over here in this, correct? So it is very very important that whatever my size is there, right, the index if I'm giving, right, it has to be in inclusive whatever the range, that is from 0 to my size minus only. I cannot do, let's say, -1 also. If I do, again I'll get the same exception, that is array out of bounds exception. If you see, again index -1 out of bounds for length 5, again we are getting the same exception, correct? And null pointer exception, it is also like most common exceptions. That what I did was, is basically I, maybe let's say int, and then I have just given my numbers, but I have just declared, I haven't initialized. And if I want to try to access the elements of this, let's say maybe 0, then as you can see, right, it is giving already initialize the variable numbers. Again, let's try to compile it. If you see, we'll get that exceptions. See, in variable numbers might not have been initialized, correct? Maybe let's say I'll do a basic initialization, that is, maybe I've given 5, but I haven't initialized the values of that particular number. So let's see. what we'll get. All right, again 0. Again, you have to understand over here a slight thing, that if I'm not initializing, I'll get that null pointer exception, correct? But let's say I have initialized but not given the value set, but we have got 0 as value, because Java by default, if you do not specify any numbers, right, by defaultly it will assign the 0 values to it. Okay, so, and apart from that, mismatch data type during initialization. So what does it means? That I have declared my numbers as data type, which will store the integer data. But instead of that, what I have done is I am storing basically that, let's say I'm storing a particular character, right? Instead of character, maybe I can say 56.7f, right? So this is what a integer array, but I'm trying to store a float value to my integer array. All right. So it is also a common error. Usually people will do that. That is possible loosely conversion from float to int, because it is a mismatched data. So you should avoid these kind of things. Okay. And many exercises, like as we have saw, like finding the largest number, that is the maximum number or minimum number, and then calculating the sum of array elements. So along with that, I suggest you to basically like try to do a reverse an array, like whatever the array is there, right? If you start from, instead of starting from 0, if I start from uh, that is size minus 1, backtracking towards to the left, then it will be my reverse an array, correct? And these are all the assignments. Try to do these assignments, like find the average marks, along with that print the names, take a string array and then try to print the names in a reverse order, at the same time like finding the second maximum in an element. Okay, and the summary will be like, so far we have covered how to basically arrays store multiple values of same type. And then if I want to access the arrays, right, I always and always have to start from 0, not minus 1, not anything, not 1, it has to be 0. And then uh, I have to access elements from 0 to the size minus 1 inclusive, not beyond that. Otherwise we'll get uh, array bound exceptions. Okay, and use loops for traversal, and at the same time like handle exceptions carefully. Okay, so I hope you understood, you got a basic idea of what array, why do I need array. Okay, so yeah, this is a pretty much a basic demo of array. So, along with that, I'll just conclude my session saying that if I mean, not only Java, right, I'll teach all different types of languages, including like C, C++, Java, Python, along with good frameworks. I'll teach like Spring, Spring Boot, microservices, and as well as Git. Along with that, I'm very good at data structures and algorithms. So, definitely, I would suggest. I mean, on the top right corner, my ID will be there, Enthusiastic ID, and then my availability will be there in that over itself. So yeah, you can try. You can book the demo classes or trial classes, or you can directly join to my classes to learn and to become better at whatever you are looking for. So I hope. I wish you and I hope that you will do a great with Enthusiastic and with me. Thank you.